Welcome to Situational Awareness, a podcast brought to you by Militarny.com. I'm your host Valentina Kuzik, and today I'm joining you from Defense Tech Valley in Lviv. I'll talk to Eveline Buchatskiy. She's a managing partner of D3 Investment Fund, and she shared an incredible thought on how to investors don't have to choose between profitability and protecting our democracy, but rather how they combine these two goals in one. Thank you for being here, Eveline. Welcome to the show. We are so happy to have you here, both on the podcast and at the Defense Tech Valley 2025. How it's been so far for you?
Incredible. I see the evolution of this conference. I think this is the third edition, and it's incredible to see the number of people attending. I suppose around 5,000 people from where, like, they come from. It's from everywhere across the globe, all the allied nations. The number of foreigners here is just mind-blowing. The number of startups, and before it used to be just Ukrainian startups. Now you have a mix of startups from everywhere, which tells me this is not a local conference anymore. This is indeed a global defense tech conference. So Ukraine, in that respect, is in the global map.
I know that after this conference, you are heading to London to participate in another conference. So we are having like multiple conferences in Europe. They are in line with Rearm Europe program, of course. So my question to you, do you find them useful? Are you seeing any kind of outcomes after those conferences?
Look, here's the thing with entrepreneurship. You have to raise the entropy of it. What do I mean by that? Entropy is chaos, is randomness. You have, think of it as like in chemical terms, all these atoms bumping into each other, right? So you have to facilitate interactions, ideas being exchanged, experimentation, the frequency and the amount of them. So all these interactions that take place in conferences, eventually there's a spark and something comes out of it. So the entropy associated with a conference of this size may feel like, is this useful use of founders' time, investors' time, and particularly founders' time? And the answer is yes, to a certain extent. You don't want to be doing this only. You need to balance such that as a founder, for example, you also have much more time towards product development, conversations with the end user, and fundraising, of course. But you also don't be missing in action in such a place, because that's where the magic sometimes happens. It's not about the content on panels. It's not about who are the speakers. It's about this energy and these interactions that you have on the lounge areas and so on that lead into more doors being open, contracts. And what's amazing about the Ukrainian conferences is that you can actually meet the end user as well.
Right.
Instead of going to the front line, you can have representatives of the military come over and you can ask direct questions about your product if you are a founder. And for investors, of course, investors have more time than founders usually, but for investors to see, as we have here, walk into a pavilion and right there see dozens of companies is extremely efficient for us to have the overall assessment of the landscape.
Great, very nicely said. Can you tell us a bit more about the fund you're running and like special portfolios that you do have in Ukraine of the companies?
Sure. So the fund was created 2 years ago exactly to equip the warfighter in Ukraine with the best technology from around the world, but specifically to unveil the hidden gems in the MilTech ecosystem in Ukraine and turn them into global success stories. So we've invested in 17 companies so far. 8 of them are Ukrainian founders operating out of Ukraine, for Ukraine, everything about Ukraine.
Registration in Ukraine?
The registration is usually outside of Ukraine because they want to be part of a venture story and they will need multiple rounds of financing. And typically the investors later on are more used to certain jurisdictions instead of doing one jurisdiction and then changing to another to satisfy later stage investors. They just right from the get-go register the company to receive capitals, external capital in that jurisdiction, but the money inevitably gets spent here in Ukraine because they have all the operations here, and obviously the products are delivered to the front line. And then the rest of the companies, 9 companies, are from US, Germany, Israel, UK, etc. But what unites them all is they're all trying to bring the best technology to the Ukrainian army. We do not invest in companies that do not have Ukrainian army as their primary end user.
Great. So those are also in your portfolio international companies, but working in Ukraine and battle tested, right?
Yes, yes, yes. So we also help them open manufacturing facilities in Ukraine, find a local team, a country manager, field engineers. So they end up growing to the point that sometimes the team in Ukraine is bigger than the team at the headquarters.
What the overall amount of the investment so far?
Okay, so our fund at the moment is a $40 million fund, and we have deployed about 1/3 of the capital so far to these companies. The typical check size that we sign is between 300 and 500 initially, and then we keep investing in the company. So, for example, we were the first investors in Swarmer, which had an announcement today of a new round of $50 million, which is a historical round for a new tech company from Ukraine. We were on the first round, on the second round, and the third round. Altogether, the investment in Swarmer is over $1 million.
Okay, so any other examples that you want that really stand out after your portfolio?
Oh, it's like children. You love all of them, right? But particularly about the Ukrainian stars, I should say, we have Airlogix. They have a portfolio of products that includes the very well used Gore reconnaissance drone, but they also have strike drones, deep strike missiles. So they have a full portfolio. They grew the company to now over 500 people. So we were also the early investors, and they have several upcoming major partnerships in the US, in Europe. I will not announce before they do.
Of course.
I will let them have that pleasure, but it's definitely a rock star company, and the founder is an execution machine. We have Frontline, also Ukrainian company with a great example of how to integrate with the European market, more specifically Germany. They received investment from Quantum Systems. So that's also a company we like to highlight. And I can go on and on. Also international companies that are enjoying some success here in Ukraine. We have Neros from California, a company that successfully raised $46 million in investments. And their very first major contract was exactly to supply 6,000 drones to Ukraine. And now they're going to supply more and more. So it was their first major customer. And you have Titan Technologies from Germany that, fingers crossed, will very, very soon, within days, have their breakthrough in combat for an interceptor for Shaheeds, fully autonomous interceptors. They have now a manufacturing facility in Kiev. They have whole team in Kiev. They are almost as Ukrainian as German.
Oh, great.
Yes.
What's important for you when you're looking for a company to invest in? How do you select those companies? What's like 3 most important things?
I already mentioned the fact that we want them to prioritize Ukraine.
Okay.
That's kind of like number one. Without that, we don't even have a conversation because it's a waste of time for both sides. But other than that, obviously being such an early stage investment, we look at the team. And more specifically, we want to make sure the team is highly technical. So they absolutely have to have a CTO as a minimum. And we even prefer if the whole team is technical. So we, have the team as the central piece. and the ambition to go global. So there are a lot of amazing teams in Ukraine that are having an impact on the front line, but they don't necessarily want to go beyond.
They see themselves on Ukrainian market solely, yeah?
And for this war in particular, they may not even want to stay as a defense company forever. They feel like they need to save the country and have a critical role to play, but they don't necessarily want to make this into some kind of like major global entrepreneurship story. They may go back to whatever they were doing before the war, and that's great, but it's just not a match for us. So we look for those who have really crossed the Rubicon into defense, and they're in this sector to stay with great ambitions of expanding domestically and globally, and creating a defense tech mafia, if you will, of very successful entrepreneurs.
You've mentioned about those small teams that are not having those ambitions to go internationally, and probably that's because they are lacking, entrepreneurship skills and like business ambition, something like that. Are you still considering them as partners? Maybe you are thinking about helping them to develop that ambition in any way?
Well, there is a whole ecosystem now to nurture that level of entrepreneurship. So I can go on the list, like this conference is part of the ecosystem, right? Again, we talked about interactions. You have accelerators like Defense Builder, that they do a great job, and MEETS has an acceleration program as well. So you have several players. One major player is Brave One as a grant
Mechanism.
Yes, so the grant program for Brave One absolutely increases the level of entrepreneurship, because with that money you can create your first prototype, you can showcase, get your first contracts with some charities, directly with the brigade. So it really makes a huge difference. So you do have quite a few players trying to, inside that spirit of like bigger entrepreneurship path for them. And now you have the VCs. D3 is not the only one. You have newer and newer VCs coming up in the market. Having capital also helps. So I think it's a trending up type of situation for more people thinking about not just solving this war, but rather like, hey, there is a path to a bigger vision here. And also the world in general is turning defense tech very sexy. So talent is jumping in and staying, talent that wasn't there before. The demand signals are really high, budget in Europe going up. So all these trending up factors will lead to more people to look at this as not just, I want to fix this problem, but rather I want to make this my career.
We are making this podcast as a part of this communication product, maybe to draw the attention of international partners, Western companies, but also investors to Ukraine, right? Mm-hmm. And you've mentioned that defense is becoming sexy. On one hand, maybe yes. On the other hand, still there are lots of investors hesitating whether to come to the market. Of course, there are lots of objections. I think from my perspective, when I talk to different investors and foreign companies and I'm asking them about the return on investment, and they say, oh, it's all about values. We are building that because we want to protect our democracies, which is I completely share because it's such a powerful message and it's actually true. However, I think for a lot of investors, actually the return is very important. So what's your view of that? How you position yourself and how you are talking to other colleagues who are considering joining the market?
Yes, I get this question quite a lot from what's called limited partners, the people that invest in funds that invest in startups, like the people that invested in G3 and other funds, right? So before they put money in a fund for defense tech, one of the first questions they have is, okay, are you going to focus on having an impact on the battlefield, defending democracy, or are you going to focus on actually making money? And my answer to them is always the same. I will make money because I will focus on the impact. If I am focusing on having an impact, I will be investing in companies that are useful, that will sell, that will create adoption, that will have traction,
Right.
that will have the large contracts, that will have the
And also
revenue.
maybe abroad, right?
Yes, and they will go abroad because they will have something to show, they will be combat proven. And these companies inevitably would attract more investments and they will have exits. And in that process, I will get the return. If I didn't think of the impact, I would not be selecting such companies that have a higher chance of succeeding as a business. So I don't see these as mutually exclusive. I see them as actually complementary
Right.
and
That's
essential.
it's a great idea, and I think so. Maybe the key to that is that you have to find a professional VC, a manager, yeah, to work on this project, and then you got it all, right?
Yeah, well, I myself came to this with a lot of investment experience, having invested in dozens of companies prior to not defense tech,
Non-defense.
but SaaS technologies and etc. But it wasn't completely without experience. Also, a lot of the rules apply. It doesn't matter if it's a SaaS company or meal tech company. Certain rules apply, like the way you select the teams. A lot of these things are transferable, and as well as my team. So I have one partner who came from another VC fund, and she had done 200 deals back then. So yeah, and we also do this full time. So we live and breathe these investments and nurturing companies and helping them as best we can. So it's not a side gig, it's our lives.
That's a very powerful message to end on. Thank you very much, Eveline, for being with us and for supporting Ukraine.
Thank you for inviting me, and you are doing a great job. Thank you.